lunchroom. And we are missing, but Brian is also on the conference call with you, and then Lori is absent. So, that's,
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, it is 4:14. We're going to call this meeting to order for the January Board of Directors meeting for Cary Health Network. Thank you for everyone who is here. It's great to have a full room. If you have a cell phone, wonderful. If you please put it on silent, that would be appreciated. Open the floor to staff or citizens. Anyone? Comments, questions, concerns? Dave, you good back there?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Meeting minutes from December. And Brian, are you listening in? Would you like to participate in the votes?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so meeting minutes, everyone's had a chance to review those. Any questions, concerns? No, I'll take a motion of acceptance.
There was one typo, does that matter?
Sure.
I'm in the operations report,
What page?
4. Near the bottom, this is the paragraph start well and then extended. I think that's supposed to be through sometimes. Fifth sentence. from the
Oh,
bottom.
yes, got it.
I'll make a motion to approve
With the edit.
with the edit. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 4-0. Okay, we have a meaty consent agenda. There are not two board members that would like to pull out a specific item. I would move there and take a motion there.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And a motion and a second for that. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
C, or yours?
So many exciting things going on right now. Number one, the hospital is full, which is always exciting to us. We have 16 inpatients, which is like max capacity,
Literally
which
full.
is great, and literally full, which is wonderful. I want to introduce our two dietitians, registered dietitians that are here. We have Tammy Johnson on our left.
Good evening.
And we have Jane Doroff. And so we're really excited that they're here. This is like a much needed service that we've talked about a long time. And I think our patients are really going to benefit from both of you guys being here. And Tammy, you're mainly going to be in Port Orford.
I think that's the plan. And traveling one day, but mostly Fridays and Port Orford.
Great. And Jane, you'll be Gold
I'm pretty
Beach.
much here for Monday through Thursday.
Excellent. So I think that's important.
This is all board and staff members fall under the complimentary.
Well, actually, we are doing free classes.
Oh, wonderful.
Excellent. So that's good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
As far as other medical staff business, urology is busy cooking along. I think they've got about 25 sisters scheduled this week. So we have Dr. Mayer doing 1 week a month of urology practice, and then Dr. Lewis doing 3 weeks a month of practice, which is great. We also have this third urologist sort of in the wings, Dr. Polton, still working on getting his Oregon license, but he's there to kind of pick up any slack that those two have, which they're just busy right away. I also want to introduce Dr. Michaelis. She is our radiologist. We are so excited to have her. Oh man, I have been anxiously awaiting her arrival, probably more than anyone else. So really a pleasure to have her, and just waiting for some insurance company credentialings until she can start doing some procedures, which I have a whole list I'm waiting to do with her. Also, some sad news for us. Dr. Adams has told us he will be moving on in April. He's given a 90 days notice, which is a huge loss for us. He will be moving up to Bandon. So we're just getting plans in place to figure out how we're going to cover, some of his patients, about half of which are Brookings patients, and some other of his patients are actually from other outlying areas, not in our county. We did hire a nurse practitioner, Jackie Michael Havens, which is scheduled to start in June, and she will be a great asset to our network. Other things going on, Dr. Beatty and Dr. Louder are going to have a meeting next week at North Bend to kind of discuss doing a call schedule for, OB stuff up there, which I think will be great for them. And I think that's it. That's all I have to add. Any questions about medical staff?
After the month.
It's been busy, yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carl?
All right. A lot to talk about in terms of finance.
Thank you, ladies.
I'm going to start right out of the gate with one of those beloved spreadsheets that I know y'all love. It's the income statement. And what we see is we have a negative bottom line. I'll stand at point. Negative bottom line in December of $329,000. The irony is that beats the budget by $184,000 because Decembers have been historically very low revenue month, as well as November. And the other thing, though, that happened that caused that to be positive, as we will discuss it at length, is the opening of the Brookings ER. And so we have a lot of information here about the effect of that, which in general terms was positive from a finance person's point of view. You can start seeing some of that positiveness, and the net operating revenue was 25% higher than we had budgeted and 38% higher than the prior year. And I will tell you that is 100% Brookings ER. And I'll break that down so you'll see how that compares to how Brookings ER contributed and all the rest. We have had considerable expense increases. Our strategy in opening the Brookings ER was to spend what we had to get it open and make sure that we provided an excellent service. And I'm looking at Megan, who's kind of the leader of that whole thing, and that was what we agreed to do. So we'll see operating expenses here. And one of the lines here is the contract labor, which looks just outrageous, $430,000 over the budget. And by the way, this budget that I'm comparing to is the budget that we were operating under from July through December. The board approved a revised budget to become effective January 1st in order to deal with several issues that we discussed the last few meetings, one of which was opening Brookings ER. And so this is a variance from the budget we had before. If you look over at the fiscal year to date, we're still not doing very well compared to the fiscal year to date. Our net margin is a negative 664. It's almost $2 million less. Part of the reason we redid the budget is that tells you we were off in our calibrations, and that was simply true. That said, you can see that fiscal year to date, prior year, we're 4% higher. We're $1 million over what we were last year through December. So a lot of moving parts, and we just don't seem to stop doing things like opening the Brookings ER, a new hospital, bringing on board new providers, and those things are disruptive but good, I think. So as we go down, I'll explain more. I'm not going to stop for questions unless somebody really sees something, okay? All right, this is just the trend that we didn't have a presentation of the November financials. November was a month that in my kids' term sucked. And part of the reason it did is November has lower revenues, and we were staffing up for the Brookings ER. So we had on board a lot of labor costs. I'm a finance guy, I don't, not people. At any rate, November was not a good month, December was not a good month. December was a better month than we had budgeted. So, yeah. And if you want to understand comparisons in revenues, you can look at the blue lines. These lines are revenue, This is last December. We actually had a positive margin last December, but this is where the revenue was, below 3.3 million. Look all the way over there, it's above 4.3 million. Okay, ZR. Okay. Some statistics that kind of give you the statistical version of this story is if you look up there, you'll see inpatient services, and although outpatient observation days are counted as outpatient revenues, they're provided by inpatient nurses and by the hospitalists. And what you can see is a number that shows a 75% increase over the 12-month average. So what I do to do this is I compare with the prior 12 months. So I'm looking at November through December of last year, and we were 75% higher. This is an area where our business plan for Brookings ER, we underestimated the impact of observation. We simply did. It's also an industry trend we've been seeing and talking about in the board meeting for about the last 6 months. Total patient days, as the latest news is, we have 16 patients in the hospital right now. And through December, we had a 48% higher number of patient days, which is the way we measure inpatient workload. 48% higher than the 12-month average. And December is usually lower by 12%. So this is 48% higher, so figure that out. 60% higher than we expect December to be. Average daily census for December was 8.5. Prior 12-month average was 5.9. 45% higher. You know, I think January was running, Megan, if I'm not mistaken, kind of the way December was, but the last few days, not so much.
Yes, we dipped the first couple of weeks. Our census was more to normal, and then we spiked the last week.
Yeah. Emergency services, it says total. In the handout, in the board packet, I broke it down into total services, CMC, and CGH. We'll get into that in a minute. But when you combine the two emergency services together, we had 143% more emergency visits than we did over the last 12 months. 702. So we have, I can't overemphasize this, because growth is both good and painful, and we're learning. And so we've got a lot of learning to do. But Brookings ER is quite a phenomenon. Admissions were up 48%. Now, the admissions rate, you'll see that percentage there, and it's down 39%. Part of the reason, if you all remember when we made a presentation on the Brookings ER, I explained that we were expecting that possibly 60+% of the people who were using the same-day services in Brookings historically would be warranted a level of care appropriate for an emergency room. And Megan, help me if I'm not wording that correctly. Okay. So what we're seeing here is that because of that, that adds quite a few emergency cases with a lower probability of it being admitted. Now, Megan just sent me something in the mail that says, maybe not so much, Carl. So stay tuned. We really got to get some experience under our belt here. Transfer rate was higher, pretty much the same thing. We're simply seeing a lot more patients. Some of them have to be transferred. And as far as a role for the CMC EC in this community, one of our jobs is to make sure you get to the right place at the right time. And that's why the transfers are up. Outpatient service visits. ER visits we just talked about. Office visits were down 12%. That's about what normally happens in December. And one of the things that's been very difficult for Holly and I to do is to sort out what happened in December when you're adding the Brookings ER and you're having this December phenomenon of fewer office visits. And I think we got it pretty much right, but we'll see. Same-day clinic visits. Remember I talked about the shift from same-day visits to emergency room? Well, same-day clinic visits went down by almost 300 on an average basis, down 12%. 42%, I'm sorry. God, these glasses are terrible. So down 42%. That's actually less of a decline than I had forecasted in my business plan. So, and I guess I'm hearing that in January, the same-day visits are up again. So this is a good thing, and we were concerned that we needed to learn how to, instruct the public in our market on how to use same-day instead of an emergency room. And it looks like that's going pretty well. It's going pretty well. The final number down there under the outpatient service visits is ancillary visits, which were off. And the reason for that is CMCEC increased certain ancillary services, mostly, as you'll see in a minute, the lab and the radiology down at CMC. But they also decreased up here. So we'll see. And then down in surgery, we had a slow month. So, okay. Variances. I usually package a variance statement for the board, and I thought this time it might be instructive and informative to give you an idea of the CMC impact. So we had inpatient days 86% over the 12-month average. 51, when we did the CMCEC budget, and I'm just putting, this is what was in the budget, we expected 51 inpatient days. We had 86, and I'm thinking if January just finishes off the way it is, we'll have more than that. So that was an area where I think I underestimated, okay? Observation days. We only had 8. That's 8 times 24 hours, right, basically, because that's a service that's reimbursed and counted on an hourly basis. And we had 34. So you can see, I don't know, and I'm just looking at the financial impact. Megan and crew have to manage the actual service, and so I'm not quite sure what the implications are for more observation days. But we have 16 patients in the house, and we have observation patients. We are full. I haven't heard that said here in an awfully long time. ER visits in both sites. We were expecting 702 more ER visits in net. That's net of what what happened is we knew some of the patients who came here for emergency services would go down to Brookings because that's where they live, and they did, and we're still trying to figure out what the balance is. But we had budgeted for 705, and we had 702. So that was pretty much on the money. And then we talked about same-day visits. We had budgeted for a decline of 637 visits per, on a monthly basis. We've only had 380. So the decline in the use of the same day isn't as great as I thought it would be. And I honestly don't know why, but it's good news. And the feedback's been pretty good so far, too. Okay. Just down here real quick, when you look at operating revenue, the operating revenue is $880,000 over budget, and the CMC budget said it would be $836,000. So, not bad. Operating expense, here's a problem area for us, because I said what we were going to do is we were not going to spare an expense, because we wanted to open this and make it a good experience. $713,000 budget variance. The CMC budget was only for $505,000. So we're actually $200,000 off a budget when it comes to the total expenses. And I won't bore you with all these other things. We also contract labor. We had budgeted $277,000. We have $430,000. So we got some work to do on the expense. But I consider that sort of analogous to trimming the sales. That makes sense? Any questions from the board? Okay. All right. Here's a preliminary, notice it's in big red letters, preliminary, right, Holly? Because trying to sort this out and working with the operations management is how we're going to do that. But this is the December marginal impact of the CMCEC. Marginal impact means it doesn't, not just that emergency room, but also its impact on all the other departments of the hospital, everywhere, including, for example, we had less revenue up here, we had more revenue down there. We had less CT scans up here, we had more down there. up, it goes on and on and on and on like that. So total service charges, the charges that we had budgeted were for $1.3 million, and we only saw 850. So as much as that was good, I just described to you how good that was, it wasn't as good as our business plan said. Now, it is true, that was the first month we were open. We opened on December 2nd. We'll see. We'll see. Estimated net revenue is about $318,000 less than what we had estimated. It's still positive, and it's still a very good positive marginal impact. It's just not what we had in the business plan. And on the expense side, we talked about that. The labor expenses are $73,000 higher than what we had in our CMC business plan. Materials and services, there's a red, you know, Excel people here know that means I put a note in there, and the note says, we got to check this, because we have some expenses that we haven't seen come in yet. And so this is probably low, and that's why this is preliminary, so nobody, you know, think this is the gospel. Operating margin, though, $91,000 positive margin. We had budgeted pretty optimistically for 331. Incidentally, this number is what I call steady state. This is in the business plan X months after we got it up and running. So I'm comparing what we did with steady state, and this is the first month out of the gate. So as I said, we're going to keep track of this and monitor the heck out of it. Okay. Anybody have any questions? All right. I was asked by the Finance Committee yesterday to do this, which is, let's see how this compares with everything else we're doing. So this reflects the operating margin, not which excludes other operating revenue, and it excludes non-operating revenue. So this is just the operating margin. All services had a negative $336,000 operating margin. CMC impact was a positive $91,000, which basically means all the other services had a greater loss. So you can see the benefit of CMC right there is that it took that bigger loss and made it smaller. And then CMC as a percentage of the total is quite fascinating. It's 62% of our inpatient charges. Wow, it's 62%. Outpatient charges, it's 7%, not as big, but for inpatient, I'd say the biggest impact of this has been on the inpatient side, et cetera. Okay. So I'm going to shift gears now. I'm not going to talk about CMC anymore. This is the balance sheet. Highlighted the unrestricted funds, since we are have been concerned about cash flow, and we just opened the Brookings ER. And the important things to know about that is it's not as down as big as it could have been with that startup, because we got a line of credit from Advanced Health, and so far we've used and through December we've used $725,000 of that line of credit. That is a short-term liability that will be repaid before November. So, well, we did find out with the $200,000 other current liability that I got an answer for it. Okay. All right. Days cash on hand. This is the key financial ratios. The red bars mean we're underperforming, and the quarterly trend is down. The 3-year trend is up. It's all green. But the key number that we look at is the days cash on hand is 26 days cash on hand. And
Got a question.
yeah,
What are we using for a day cash? Is that a floating number that you calculate?
it does get recalculated. Yes.
139 was what it was yesterday.
And it does change.
Yeah, I know it does.
And so what will happen is with the Brookings ER opening up, the expenses per day will go up, which will make that number go down more, unless we bring in cash related to it. So,
So we borrowed over 5 days of cash.
that's my finance report.
Any questions? Karen? Okay. Brian, do you have any questions?
No, I got that straightened out yesterday, pretty much.
Okay. Alrighty. Jenny, anything?
No, I don't have anything more to add.
Okay. Alrighty. No further questions. Laura, Karen, I take that motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
Okay, no further discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll second, and no further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
All right,
Okay, 4-0. Thank you very much. Ms. G?
Yeah, so you have my written operations report, and being distant and on my phone and looking at packets and agenda on my phone, I'm not really
No, that's
going
okay.
to elaborate on any of that.
You were
But I would
you were
field
very
any questions.
you were very thorough this month in your report. I did have one question on the section F there. You said management's considered a temporary full-time recruiter. Is that a recruiting firm or someone in-house?
Well, we're talking about that, Ryan. I think what we'd like to do is have it be somebody internal, somebody that knows our organization and our community and can really focus on, demonstrating what a great place we are to work at and what a wonderful place to live. And when you hire an outside firm, they're typically working a lot of other accounts and they're just looking to place people. We're actually talking about potentially somebody that we would hire as our own to recruit because we have a lot of positions to fill. We really want to work to get the traveler load down and bring people to our community and work in our organization. So that hasn't been finalized yet. We're still in discussion about what does that look like, job description. I don't know if Carolyn is in the crowd there, but it's preliminarily, we know we need to look at over the next 18 months, how are we going to reduce the number of travelers and bring people here. So, that's what we're hoping to do.
Okay, I don't know. I think this is a good direction because the excess we spend a year on travelers we could cut that by 10%. We pay for someone. Ballpark numbers, but
Yes, absolutely.
It's a big number, so that's positive.
Huge.
Yes. Okay, Brian, Karen, Chloe, anything for the report? Any questions? No. Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
that's all right, that's fine.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much, Jenny, for the ensuring this extended the night based upon you not being here. But thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we'll open the floor again to citizens or staff at this moment. Okay, thank you guys again for being here. Jenny, you presented us with monitoring your CEO performance for 4.4, the optimal health and outcome policy 1.1 for our review for discussion next month. I guess if anyone's discussion right now, we can do that, but okay. All right, so thank you for that, Jenny.
One thing I would mention, Ryan, about that really is just a snapshot. It is not intended to necessarily show trends. There were a number of metrics that we were measuring last year that have been retired either by CMS or other agencies, such as the mean to physician exam times. They no longer requiring us to report that. So if you were to compare this report to last year's, you will see there are different metrics in there. And if I were to go over some trends, there is some significant improvements in the data. One being the number of impaneled patients that we have in the network. It grew more than 20% from last year. Also, our third next available new patient appointment went from 70 days down to 23. So we definitely are seeing improvements, but this report is more of a snapshot, not a trend over time. You can see these metrics also in our quarterly quality report, and that's where you'll be able to watch the trends.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Okay, CEO compensation. Ms. Karen, you and Lori have been
Yes.
pinballing around
We
and
have, we've
you
been,
guys got together.
we did. We got together, we've had a couple of discussions, some pretty good discussions about it, looked at how performance was rated for all other admin teams, management team, and how that was reviewed.
Is that internally or at an external place also?
Internal.
Okay.
We did it internal because of the curve and all that too.
Okay.
We looked at the curve. At this point, our recommendation is to do an 8% increase, which was,
Okay, one second.
so we're between the 1.5 and 9% was the curve.
We just, you just 30 seconds to read this?
Yes.
Okay. So these increases were based upon our internal staff's increases, correct?
These were
These
based on.
ratios? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So 1.5 to 9%, 7.
So how did you arrive at 8%?
We looked at, based on some of the items and based on, we looked at it because we're looking at it based on the monitoring reports right now. That's another thing that I'd like to discuss, because we'd like to change that to shared values, a portion of it to be shared values, just like it is for staff. But,
I see.
go ahead.
It looks like, so on a scale of more or less 3 to 5, there was a curve, in-house there was a curve. And in a nutshell, you're rating Jim in the top
Yeah.
80-90%. And that works out to be basically the 8% versus 9 being max.
Correct.
Okay. So you said 4 admin team members, that is direct reports to her? So,
It's Carol.
yes, that's correct, okay. So Jenny's 4 reports, 1 received a 5.5, 2 received an 8, and 1 received a 9. And then the management team worked out this way. No longer with us. You get the bottom of the barrel, you probably.
Yeah, you don't want to be with us. We don't.
So how does this fit with the bonus structure?
The bonus structure would be in addition to that, and our discussions were, and our courses are still open because we don't have our strategic plan yet, but we were going also with the maximum 20%. We'd like to base it on the pillars of excellence with our strategic planning so that it's all tied together. I think that that's going to take some more in-depth discussion between all of us to determine what those are. We have some employee survey metrics that would be nice to measure against for some things. Provider efficiencies, ER, there are some different metrics that I think we need to get together as a group and discuss where the priorities are. And I think strategic planning will
plan.
work out. What's that?
Strategic plan.
Yeah, strategic planning. We would like to change, like I said, the evaluation, so it's a percentage on the monitoring reports, but also a percentage on shared values, just like the rest of the staff, because that also supports our CLS and things like that too, based on,
So shared values, do you have something?
so they have essential functions and then shared values.
So this is what
This
is
is what all of our
agreed on.
based.
Now, just this is off the subject, but is this every staff member in the hospital or just this the admin team?
Every,
Including the admin team,
Including them?
including the admin.
Everyone except providers.
Okay.
Everyone except providers.
Jenny, I don't know, you probably don't have a copy of it, it's accredited to you.
doesn't even know what we're seeing.
No.
Oh, you don't know, you don't know.
Don't even know what we're looking at.
Are you familiar with the essential functions and shared values, performance reviews?
Yes.
I have just asked a question, is this something that you brought with you or is this something that's just been developed here over time?
So actually, we've been working with this over time. Carolyn's had, some influence on it. Some of it was brought to me from my previous organization where we definitely weighted the behaviors of our employees more than we weighted their essential functions. The thought being, if you hired an individual into a technical position, be it registration, environmental services, pick any department, we're essentially, if you're working here, you're meeting expectations. You know how to do your job. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be working here. So we really wanted to align also the service excellence and our employee engagement initiative with those values because and those values are demonstrated in our behaviors. And so this year it's always, our evaluations have, since I've been here, have included both the performance metrics or the key, I can't remember what they call it, whatever on the top there. We've always included both, but this year we weighted the values much more heavily.
Yeah, see you got a 75-25 there.
Yeah. Because again, we know you know how to sweep the floor, we know you know how to draw somebody's blood, we know you know how to fill in the blank. What we really want to enhance is how well do we perform in those key values, our teamwork, our professionalism, our excellence. That's what we really want to drive with our employees through now.
And not to be terribly sarcastic, but I appreciate your confidence in staff today versus when you arrived.
Well, I think the entire organization had the confidence when I arrived. I think we lacked the confidence and we didn't have necessarily the data to be able to support those statements. I think people are really doing a phenomenal job, and I think that, based on our employee satisfaction results and what I believe we're going to see in our patient satisfaction results, it's all kind of culminating. This will be a big year for us.
Agreed. Okay, Karen.
And I guess at this point that she has not had an increase since 2018, I believe, so.
Okay. Question for you. Where, with that one on the contracts in front of us, so specifics, where does it put us as far as competitive in the market, our CEO versus surrounding areas?
We're doing well. Yeah, she's definitely paid in the top tier of
The top tier?
our local.
Okay, all right. sorry, you don't have any of this information in front of you.
I did get a chance to sit down with Karen though, and we had a fairly lengthy discussion one day, so,
Oh, okay,
I made sure that all my ideas were given to her.
okay. Are you familiar with these, this performance review at all? That we got a copy of it in front of us here.
No, I don't have a copy of that. I haven't seen the final result.
Okay. Are you, I don't know,
Want me to send it there?
yeah, so, are you in any kind of a position to receive any emails while we're having this phone call?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We're gonna snap a few photos of this stuff and send it to you, and we're actually gonna carry on a little bit with our meeting, and then we'll loop back, give you a chance to print those out and peek at them. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Cheryl, take care of it. Okay, we'll loop back to this. Thank you, Karen.
Karen. Take notes to put me notes and stand with me.
Yes.
Okay, board self-assessment. We discussed this last meeting, and again, we're familiar with Mr. Charney and appreciate everything he's done to help us. I think we're all kind of looking for just a little different twist this coming year. Bo did some homework with, I believe, Brian, and we got a whole bunch of information here. You got one that you would highlight?
Well, we have Charney, we have the special districts, we have Govern Well, and we have the Governance Institute.
Okay.
We've been using Charney for how many years?
I'd say 4.
4 years. And, he is definitely, I'm just giving you my opinion.
He's a teammate.
He's been good. That's on the pro side. The other side of it is that it's the same old stuff. And it might be a good thing for us to consider going through this with a fresh set of eyes rather than the same set of eyes. The problem is that the only way you're going to do that is you're going to raise the cost by about $4,000. So the cost of Charney is pushing $5,000, and the cost of Government is going to be $8,000 to $9,000.
So govern well.
You're out of Chicago. The Charney's from Denver Special Districts is sitting in there. You can do that. That's included in our membership. And what Karen was telling me is that if we do the assessment, they'll give us a discount on our insurance, on some of our insurance. That's a good thing, except for, this is probably the least effective one. It's kind of every
Broad.
district.
Pretty broad.
It's pretty broad, yeah, it's a general,
Special districts.
but, it's readily available, and you'd have travel expenses if they came down here. They don't have to come down here. So you might be looking at $3,000 for special districts,
There are no travel expenses associated with special districts.
unless they come down here.
No, there are no. They do not charge you to come down.
I went on their site and looked at it, and it's sort of kind of like to me.
That was not expressed in there at all.
So that's even better. So let's say it's somewhere between $0 and $3,000. So it's going to be a couple $1,000 less than going to Charney. And the possibility of getting a discount on your insurance. The only thing is, that we're looking at is we're going into strategic planning. We need to, not only with the compensation thing, we need to deal with the bonus situation there. So I'm thinking, personally, I think we need to do a CEO assessment. If it's not something that the board does, but if we pay somebody to do that, it's a third-party thing. And we sit down with everybody, the board and the CEO, find out what they think. But that's, if you go with Govern Well, you've got company that's in that business. You can do it for $6,000 roughly, $600 to $6,000 online. So it's a questionnaire you fill out. If you want to get the physical presence here, you're going to have to pay the travel expenses, and that's going to be another $3,000 or something. And then the last one, Governance Institute, they've got two tiers that up the ante a bunch. You're talking $30,000 at the entry level tier, and at the upscale one, you're talking $45,000. The good thing about that, in that assessment, you can get your board assessment, but you also get a CEO assessment in that same process. So, a good CEO assessment. Jenny, I think maybe you know something about this, but you're probably talking $10,000 for that? What do you think?
I don't know. I've never paid for a CEO assessment externally, so I don't know about that, Bo.
I don't think if you're going to do it, you better do it right, so I don't think you get it cheap. So, if you...
Yeah, that's probably true. I think the biggest difference, though, between all of these, if I might, with Charney, you get a survey, we do it electronically, he comes on site, and we have typically in the past have had very good dialogue. I can't say that we've been disciplined to adopt everything that we say we're going to do. SDAO I've never done before, obviously. It's intriguing. We get a discount on our insurance, and it's done well. We potentially could have good dialogue ourselves, but it doesn't sound like it would be overly facilitated. Govern Well, it will do the assessment, as you said, online, and depending on how much we want to engage them, either by phone or on site, it jacks up the cost. But you would have a facilitated on-phone conversation, at least about the results that we see, but not necessarily how do we improve them, as Charney done. Governance Institute is a whole other ballgame. It starts with an assessment with the understanding that the board wants to improve, and so it gives you a work plan for the year, and it comes with online videos. You can either choose on the low tier to attend unlimited conferences, which they are phenomenal conferences, I have to say, or you can use their board portal for electronic meetings if you chose to move away from paper. So really they all offer just slightly different things, and because of that come with different price tags. So I've worked with the Governance Institute, and they're just a great organization, but like anything, you have to tap into it. They're gonna send you things, but as much as you read them, as you watch them, as you attend their conferences, is what the board gets out of that. So.
Right, and just my final thought on it is that we don't want to go cheap on this, whatever it is, just because of the money, but we have to justify whatever we spend, because we don't have, there's not any extra money around here. This has to be something that we get some return out of it, through the way that we perform. So, if it was me, I would stay away from the governance one, only because it's the most expensive one.
It's pretty wild expensive.
Yeah. And then I would even consider special districts only as a kind of a patch until we get to the strategic planning. The strategic planning, we pull the trigger on that, if we did it tonight, you're not going to be through that thing for 6-8 months, maybe a year. So what do you do, assessment before you do it, or after you do it, what do you do?
My thought process is, normally when Charney shows up for this, we do the pre-online stuff, and because he knows us literally, personally, and as an organization, he develops some really good talking points for us. And once we get through the assessment, typically we have 4 to 8 hours of
really open dialogue that we normally don't get to have in a meeting set where you have just specific topics and you gotta stay to them. And here, he definitely creates more, well, it's a workshop, and he creates an atmosphere. We have some of our best conversations that we ever have. What are your thoughts? Do you think, I'm going to read on paper here, but do you think we would get that dialogue out of someone else that we get with Bill? Because to me, that's the most valuable part.
That is, definitely. The only way you're going to get that out of Governwell is you have to pay them to come here, because their $6,000 fee is basically online, talking to young folk. So that dialogue that we get, which when we spend, it's roughly 2 days, off and on, in the evening, and I'm happy with that, you might not be happy with what you get. So maybe what we should do is go with what we know.
I mean, I don't say it's safe, but we kind of know what to expect, but I think he does challenge us. I mean, he asks questions sometimes that we don't like.
I guess, is there an option to go with, I wouldn't mind, special districts is free, correct? Plus we have a discount, it's an hour and a half. Is that my
That
understanding
is correct.
of not doing both?
That's a good idea. It doesn't cost you anything to do with special
It's
districts.
just one end of the
That one,
discount,
that
and
one.
maybe we can glean something from it and still keep charting. That's my suggestion.
It's just your time.
It's an hour and a half, I can handle that, especially for $3,000 off. I don't know, it's worth looking at.
This is Brian.
Hey, Brian?
Yeah, comment I wanted to make is I've worked with special districts to some degree when I've been working with the library. We already pay for their services. The nice thing about getting them down here and spending some time with us is it would provide the Rolodex and cards that we can call them. And there's a lot that we can ask them for free because we're members. So this is service that we're not using now that has been very beneficial, I know, to the library.
We use special districts for quite a few different services throughout the network. And this particular offer that they're giving us is not open to everyone. It was only offered to 25 districts in the state. We just happen to be one of the lucky 25 who signed up for me to have the opportunity.
I guess the other comment I'd like to make, if we get somebody in here, I think we might look at it as a one-time deal from the point of view that the assessment, I think, could be very beneficial in terms of what our strengths and weaknesses are. I think good management always depends on being willing to accept that you've got weakness in certain areas and finding a way to fix that. And to have that assessment done, of us as an organization would be very beneficial.
How about we do the special districts assessment, and when that's complete, if we feel like we want to do charting, we'll do that one too. Because it's the only thing around is going to be your time. You want to do the other.
I'm agreeable to that.
Brian, are you agreeable to giving special districts a shot, and if we come out not impressed, we can always call Bill?
Absolutely, and I think the other thing that might be able to do is give you references for additional help if we decided we wanted that.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to vote on that?
Let her,
So, I guess we can just do special districts with the option of charting. Is that how you want the motion?
that's what we're gonna do.
Okay. So I make a motion that we utilize special districts for our board self-assessment this year, and if we still feel the need after the special districts assessment, that we contract with Charney for further assessment work. Yeah, that's true.
The gist.
Perfect.
Bill seconds that.
We'll second that. And so, if there's no further discussion. Brian, anything else to say?
No?
That's it.
Okay, no further discussion, all's in favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay, subcommittee, in composition. So, question for you guys, as was presented in our, the consent meeting minutes for the subcommittee meeting. We don't get those meeting minutes, those were from, I think, August. Right, so, but we had a meeting yesterday. We're fortunate enough, we have a representative come to explain our meeting details to you, Lori, and Brian, if you guys are able to watch. I don't know if he has, but I haven't attended any of yours, but we're 3 to 4 months behind knowing what's going on. Because you guys, if you're meeting quarterly, you meet, and then you don't approve your minutes for 3 months, and then we get it on the 4th month. So how do we try and close that gap? So if you're not in that committee and you're not attending, you know better what is going on. Because being 4 months behind, really, that's, Carl's already opened the ER at Agnes by then, so. How do we close the gap as a group to try and get us more information sooner to know what's going on?
Can we approve minutes online ahead of the meeting? And consensus?
You can have a meeting every week if you wanted to, so yes, you could.
Not to have, but to
Right.
get minutes so that they were in the next board packet.
Yeah, we have to change a couple things, because right now we're all meeting towards the end of the month, which doesn't give us time to make the agenda.
Right.
I know the finance committee meeting really has an issue, because he typically is wrapping up last minute just to make the board packet, let alone us meeting before, and then our meeting minutes making the board packet. But, you know, honestly, our meeting minutes are, they're live, yes, they're coming live. But for the people and the service, the quality,
Yeah, and I guess what's your suggestion? Because I'm perfectly fine coming to the next meeting and just discussing what we discussed, but.
we could do that.
Karen
Yes.
and Ryan, if I might, that is exactly how it worked at my last organization, because you're right, meeting minutes have to go back to the committee, it's a delay. But essentially, if the chair of that committee is put under the, the agenda under board process, that right after that meeting, so they literally could meet the day before too, they're really just doing a verbal report on what the highlights of that meeting were, either key metrics or, large topics. Sometimes, I've seen the chairs bring the agenda from that meeting or even the packet to kind of go through what they went over, but that way the full board is kept informed. And then the meeting minutes do follow at a later date for final approval.
I would assume at a high level, that's pretty much exactly what you're doing. Yeah. Dr. Carlson has pointed her, sorry. I mean, that's what you guys meet today, or you meet last week?
Last week.
Last
We
week,
meet, it was the week before.
but you're bringing notes from your meeting?
Right,
Yeah, so-
correct. I bring notes from our meeting.
Yeah, so,
That just seems to make sense, because I feel like voting on minutes and approving minutes is really just a formality, so we have the minutes documented and we all agree to the final written statement that for posterity. But you guys just want the update of what happened.
yeah, so what are we talking about?
Yeah, what are we talking about? What's new? What are the quality metrics that we're looking at?
Yeah. Brian, you have any thoughts?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. So we'll just work, and I know you got a whole bunch of chicken scratches in those, so semi-legible, we got them?
From which,
From the
Service.
civic
Yeah, we just
committee
did
meetings.
oh, people service?
We haven't done quality, but we've done service.
Not
Yeah,
today,
I
but
mean,
I'm
not
just saying.
today.
I
No,
have all my notes, I have all my
In the
notes
future,
on that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can,
Okay.
Yeah, Karen would have the board packet, I would have chicken scratchings, at least. in the
Well, I have
board
scratchings
packet.
on.
Yeah, Karen does it
Yeah,
too.
right, my notes on.
Just add, it's going to be being remembered to add to the agenda, that you need to make the report, so.
Okay, all right, that'd be great. You good with that? Let's see.
I think you skipped,
I did.
C on 35.
Oh, okay, that's right, okay, yes.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 2.10 to reflect the membership of the Board People Services Subcommittee to include the quality director and the patient experience coordinator.
Yes.
I'll second.
All right, motion, Brian, did you hear all that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right, motion and second. There's no further discussion on that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Strategic planning. Jenny, anything to chime in here at all?
I do. I wanted to make you aware, I want to clarify one thing. Last meeting, we talked about potentially using Stroudwater, which would include, it appears, more market assessment information and data to drive decisions, or Moss Adams. Two thoughts I have. One is, it's been very, very difficult for me to get Moss Adams' attention on just general questions, so I have some serious concerns about getting their attention for something as important as this. Whereas at the last meeting, we adjourned and stated that we would do some reference checking on Stroudwater, and I know Bo was actively involved and he can speak to that. But when I followed up with Stroudwater on their proposal, some key points that Bo was asking about, specifically veterans and OB, we also went into great depth about their process. And I want to make sure you guys understand that Stroudwater is an expedited 3-day process. We will provide them and they will acquire a lot of market information prior to their arrival here. But when they arrive, they will want to spend the first evening as a board meeting going over industry trends, where are things going, what we should be looking at or considering. Day 2 is a day of one-on-one interviews with up to 20 people that we would, you and I and others would have recommendations for them and coordinate those 20 interviews. That evening, they go back to wherever they stay, the 2 of them, and they pull together the market information and what they've heard from the 20 interviews, and they meet with the management team the next day, if you will, about 4 hours. From that conversation with the management team, a draft strategic plan would be presented to you on the 3rd evening at a board meeting. That's their proposal. That's how they do it. So depending on dates that they come out here, strategic planning for us, at least this year, will not be a long, drawn-out 6-month process. It's going to be quick. So there's pros and there's cons to that, obviously, but that is how they do it. And then, Bo, you can maybe fill them in a little bit on the reference checks that you've done to hear how others felt about working with Stroudwater. I will say they have been extremely receptive to me, replying every single time within 24 hours to any of my questions or my concerns. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're looking at. These 2 organizations have a very different approach.
I spoke with 3 of the references. One was from Rhode Island, all of them critical access hospitals, all of them the CEOs. One was Rhode Island, one was Missouri, and the other one was in Arizona. And it's almost like they were being paid to say nice things. They were gushing, basically. They had very high remarks, and one of them didn't have an active study or any work going on, because they do stuff besides strategic plans, but had worked with them extensively for over 10 years. And the other two were either, one of them was getting ready to do another one, and had just finished one, and the other one, and the third one had just finished the project. And they're saying, all of them are saying great benefits come out of this. So, if you, I couldn't find anything wrong with the references. The one thing I'm in favor of Stroudwater at this point. The one thing I would add, I would ask that we get from Stroudwater is, what would it cost on the data collection? Because we've got a gap right now. So we had Stroudwater did a market analysis here about 6 years ago. And as you know, when you do one of those, it's year-old data when they start, so it's 7-year-old information. And then in the meantime, every time you go to talk about it, somebody drags that thing out and tells you it's not relevant anymore. We drag it out to talk about it, but then you always say it's not relevant. So to add to their proposal, what would it cost on an annual basis, or some kind of regular basis, to update that stuff? So if you're in the land development business and you go to a company and you want to have them appraise your business, or your piece of property, whatever it is, they will give you a price that'll choke you. But if you tell them, well, I want to have this thing updated in 2 years, what will you charge me then? So make them commit up front to this other deal, and usually it's a pretty good, instead of 16, their data here is 16,000. So you get 16,000 for the data, 30,000 for the strategic plan. So instead of 16,000 to get your data a year from now, you might be talking 3,000. It's really usually dramatic.
Carl, do you even use that? Do you even have that printed?
The Stroudwater report?
Yeah, I've seen it, it's good, but do we even reference that in decision making? I guess question for you too, Jenny. I mean, you're right, it's not, we're a different organization than we were then, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Well,
so, but a lot of demographic stuff probably is similar, but as far as, opportunities and market conditions, if we had a current one, would we be using it, I guess?
Well, in their data, what's interesting is that you're at a point where if you get current data from them, you can stack it up and match it up to the data they gave you, where they predicted what you'd be doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at it for accuracy. How good were they at what they did? Knowing that there's been some changes and stuff. There are places where they should, that'll tell you, if you want to go forward with an after you're going to have to spend 16,000 to get there.
Well, to get the information we're going to get from them, we couldn't pay our own staff $16,000 a year.
Oh, absolutely, no. This is the cheapest way to get it.
Yes.
That's good data.
But
And they know what to do.
But between Jenny and Carl, I know some of us would peek at it, but would we use it?
Well,
So, Ryan, to answer your question, have I used it? When I arrived here, I definitely studied that report. It gave me a lot of information that otherwise I wouldn't have had at my fingertips. And I would say, even though it was a year-old data, we had information at least that I could look back on historical trends. I could see where the board made certain decisions on its strategic plan. It was helpful, but as both said, these things do age out, and to the extent that data changing is meaningful, I'm not sure if every year I would need that information, or whether it's information. Maybe it's not external data that we need every year, but it's our internal data. So maybe what we really need to do is track internal data more based on what are the strategic initiatives, what do we think we're going to improve, and you're tracking that. It's just, market information just doesn't change dramatically other than what we've been doing. So it's going to be interesting because we've opened the hospital and now the ER is open. But even then, you know, the ER is just open 1 month. By the time we engage these guys, if we can still get them in March, it's only open a couple of months. So it probably will be worthwhile to re-engage them to some extent, you know, in 12 or 18 months. But
Well,
I
so
don't know, I've
Jim,
just not seen market assessments done every year.
well, you can pick this.
You can do
Pick it
3 years.
3 years, or 20 and a half
Right.
months, or whatever you want.
Yep.
Just pick the one you want, and that's the one you ask them for. And you price it, but make them come in up front.
Well, I can certainly do that, but one of the things I would mention, you know, for every month that we kick this can, these guys are really booking out. They're pushing, you're trying to push me to sign because
I don't think,
they're booking out.
we're not kicking cans right now. I haven't voted, but from the original proposals that you presented us with Stroudwater was my first choice. And then I know last meeting you mentioned some struggles with communication with the Moss and also Moss's costs. And then you reaffirmed this month your struggle with Moss too. That this doesn't seem like a positive outcome waiting to happen. So, yeah, Bo is eager over here. Go for it.
So I make a motion that we contract with Stroudwater for the market analysis and strategic planning, and that in the process of negotiating, settling on a final contract with June, get some sort of commitment for data updates at a period that she decides is appropriate. And try to get a discount on that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Brian, good?
I'm wildly in favor of Stroudwater. Just I didn't do them as in-depth as Bo did, but from what I was able to ascertain, there's a world of difference between those two companies.
Okay, good. Okay, we have a motion, a second, and then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, move forward there. It's a good thing. Thank you both for the time. Jenny, Western Region?
But before we move on, maybe, I guess Cheryl's going to cover it in upcoming board meeting minutes. Okay, I'll move on. I just want to make you guys aware that there is a Western Region Flex Conference. So in the Western Region, they typically have one meeting every year. The Flex organization was commissioned by Congress when critical access hospital legislation went into effect, and their job is to inform Congress about the health and well-being of critical access hospitals. And so they're a company that, not even a company, a commissioned organization, if you will, that really looks at the financial status and well-being of critical access hospitals. They have a conference every year. Sometimes it's in Hawaii, sometimes California, sometimes Nevada. This year, it's taking place in Portland, Oregon in June. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. If it's something you're interested in, it really is a very informative conference. They give great legislative updates specific to critical access hospitals. And it's just a great conference. So I'm thrilled that it's coming to Portland. It's nice and close, and it'll be in June. So I can get you more information to Cheryl if there's not stuff in the packet. Otherwise, you can go online and Google it. It's just a heads up.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be some interest in some board members attending. So thank you.
Yeah.
And actually, those dates are locked in. Loop back to Stroudwater. You threw in the agenda a couple dates. Were those questions, or are those fairly, like that's the only window they have? The March 16th, 17th? Or do you want to get back to us?
Yeah. that week is what he's proposed to me. He said that really is the last week in March that they would be able to do that. I really want to get in touch with him, or I'm going to ask Cheryl to get in touch with him tomorrow to determine, A, is that week still available, because I hadn't committed to anything. And really, I need to talk to him about pricing as both suggested. So I'm going to have to get back to you and try to touch base with him tomorrow. It's tough. I'm traveling tomorrow, leaving very early in the morning, and not getting back to Eugene, and he'll be gone for the day by that time. So tomorrow may not work, but the day after for sure. And if those March dates worked, I wanted to know if the board was available. Otherwise, we'll go back to the drawing board, and it'll likely be in April.
Okay, so, and this is a 3-day, so the board were they involved the first day and the last, or all three?
Well, for sure the first day, that evening, and then the last day in the evening. I would imagine, as I don't have the proposal right in front of me, and I can't recall if their interviews include board members, I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I'd be shocked if they didn't. So it's probably 45 minutes on that second day as well.
Okay, all right. So we're going to block out those 3 days, roughly. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not all day, right?
No.
It'll just be that the evening of the first, 45 minutes of the second, and then the evening of the third.
Yeah, okay.
So there are 2 options there. The one option starts on the 16th, or they can start on the 17th.
Oh, okay, so an option starting on the 16th or the 17th, that's what it means. Okay. Okay, all right.
Is the board
I
able to
think
attend?
without, Lori here, but I think if we could. Brian, are you around?
I've already got blocked out. I can't think of anything more important to do at that time.
Okay. Yourself?
I will be here, but it's gonna take a full walk. I'm gonna send Jenny dates, and if something happens and it changes it.
Okay. I already have tickets to be on somewhere. Those, yeah, so I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. So, Jenny, we'll touch base.
Okay.
So,
You said there were future dates that potentially in April? Jenny?
What?
She-
I can't hear you,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
she did. So we'll just reach out and we'll ask them to give us 2 windows and we'll see where they're at.
Okay.
We'll reach out
But
tomorrow.
if they're going to want to release, they're not necessarily holding those dates, but tomorrow, should I tell John we're not going to do the March date?
Can we get back to you tomorrow?
Okay, we'll circle back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, we'll move on to G here. Where are we at? Okay, SDIS. I think we need our approval to, just have one. Yeah.
Since Jenny's not here, you want to make the motion for one of you guys to sign it? If you agree. Not in the book, I have the original, yeah.
So Cheryl,
Yes.
this is something Jenny would normally sign because it's under $10,000 without board approval. Is she just not here physically to sign it?
No, special districts is requiring authorization by board of directors.
Yes,
Have we done this in the past?
yes.
No, they've never offered this
We did a year ago, or 2 years ago, we did some sort of lock.
I've never seen this.
I don't always get it.
Your memory may be better than mine these days.
I wondered if it was embroidered on or a sticker. Couldn't stick.
Well, this sounds goofy, but we saw this in the agenda, but I don't.
You don't know what it is?
Correct.
Our broker is predicting that property insurance is going to increase greatly over the coming years with a minimum of a 10% increase. Fortunately, we didn't see much of that this year, but they said it's really going up. STIS is saying it is going up as well. If you sign this agreement to stay with us for next year, we promise that we will not increase your rates more than 5%. Carl reviewed it, thought it was a great idea. Our brokers are saying we strongly recommend entering into this.
But it says stick with us. I promise not to raise it too much.
I
Yes.
kind of like sign first.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one can touch STIS with property insurance. I actually just got back a bid from the company that does our malpractice and our general liability, and they were much higher.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept this SDIS longevity credit and rate lock agreement for the policy year 2020 through 2021. So you can do this on that.
Can you sign?
I think one of us can sign that.
Yeah. Sign.
I'll say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All is in favor? Aye.
All right.
Cheryl, you have the original?
I believe I
That's
know.
okay, we're good here. Okay. All right, Estes Park, it's getting pretty close. Travel plans, Mrs. G?
Yeah, so I'm going to let Cheryl speak to this a little bit more than me, just coordinating. I think Bo made an excellent recommendation that we find a less expensive hotel. We do not need to spend the amount to stay there, and everything is closed down there, especially with Uber. So I think the thing that Cheryl will need most from you guys is, do you want her to make your flights, and if so, do you have preferences or specific ones you want her to book? Otherwise, should we let everybody kind of fend for themselves to get down there? We'll make the registration commitments on everybody's behalf, and we'll make the room reservations. But the travel, I don't know what everybody's preference is. So, and since I'm not in the room, I'm going to let Cheryl kind of come and hear this.
It's just at the board's pleasure. If it's more convenient for you to choose your own flights and send that itinerary to me and have me purchase it, or you want to choose your own flights, purchase it and be reimbursed, or you just want me to choose flights and purchase whatever is more convenient. I know that, Ryan, you may be flying out of a different location. You guys may have a preference for Eugene versus Lakeland versus whatever, so just
It's the issue, because I was looking at flights, because I want to do a side trip, so I'm going to be doing a portion myself. But the flights that I was looking at because of my side trip, and if I really have to be there to register or something by 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Sunday, then none of my flights get there in time, so I'd have to actually arrive the night before. So I would just need to coordinate with you. I'll pay for the extra night room, but to get an extra night.
I think that's going to be most of us, because I
Yeah.
looked at flights from like every airport.
Yeah.
Like,
you
I
don't
mean,
need to
6
come.
different airports, there's no way you can get there before 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I'm just gonna make my own reservations for flight.
Yeah.
I'll just take care of it.
But then how many are you going to book rooms for
I think
Saturday?
pretty much we're going to all have to come in on Saturday if we want to go to attend the conference Sunday.
The opening.
Not me, I'll be there Sunday.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll be there Sunday. I won't come in too.
Okay. Karen, you're gonna be riding Saturday and you're gonna make your own reservations?
And I'll make my own flight reservations.
Well, you're getting there on your own, or you want me to While you're
I'll
taking.
get there myself.
Okay. Ryan, you just want to think on it and get back to me?
To be honest, I just thought you were doing everything and I didn't peek anything.
I think that's it.
Where are you going to
You
on
do
your
like to
day?
fly out.
Like,
I just haven't worked to be there for those days. So that's all. So I'll this.
Okay.
Brian, would you like Cheryl to take care of arrangements? Do you have any preference of left or right or just with the team?
I would let her get me down there on time.
Okay.
Whatever way she sees is the best way to do it.
Okay, I mean, as a group was going, so I'm obviously carpool to some airports and, you know. Brian, she'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
How do you know
Cheryl.
that Jenny made all her own reservations? And I got it working.
Okay, upcoming board meetings, Stroud Water's on the table. Estes Park is set, but it's getting there, but we all know we're supposed to be there on first. And then the Regional Flex Conference, which is a new item for us, June 9th through 11th. Opportunity there for us. And we need to, if we are going to be there, we want to make sure they have an early registration before May 15th, so we want to make sure we take advantage of that. So it's $100, call it a penalty if you're late. So, okay. And that's June 9th through 10th, 11th. We will get SD, OA or AO.
You know, it's not to throw some preferences at them because they will schedule it anywhere from now until December and they'll try to work with your schedule. So you guys have preferences as to when you want them to come do that.
Are they fairly flexible?
I tried to nail them down and, you know, and basically they said give us some dates and most people didn't come to you.
The last one.
Well, I was going to say, if we're going to be intertwined and if we get a schedule from Stroud Water, could we tie it in one of those mornings? Is that too much for one? Okay.
In my,
So we'll try and loop it in with Stroud Water possibly and do it one of those same days.
Not the same meeting, just the
No,
same
no,
day.
yeah, because we're gonna
we're just doing it.
be around for 3 days.
Okay.
Might as well just do it all at once. Okay. All right, other than that, hopefully you guys are all back here next month. Any other follow-up items? Oh, yes, CEO compensation, sorry. Brian, do you have a chance to speak at that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, any questions? You kind of catch up a little bit what we were looking at?
No, I think everything I heard, I think pretty much that's what my conclusions were too.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to sit down and really work on the bonus part because that's gonna get a little complicated.
Yeah, yes. How, Carolyn, this might be a question for you. How would we go about getting comparative bonus type plans if possible? And not just like something to mirror, but just ideas. Because we,
I haven't, so I have, the data that I have access to is from an organization called Wage Watch, and the bonus information isn't really included in that. I could anecdotally try and get some information online, but since you don't have anything to tie it to specifically right now, until the strategic plan is developed, I ask for some time to see what I can pull up.
and this probably isn't something that even recruiting firms would have laying around in file cabinets that they'd be willing to share.
They may, but they may not have it current for different organizations. They may have it at the time they're recruiting for a specific position, but that changes over time, and if not re-recruiting for that position, the bonus structure may change for that individual.
So everybody's saying, Jenny, we love you, but all we really have is what your previous experience was, because none of us have experience with this. Carl would have some history in something like this with previous experience. But I think when you get the 5 of us in a room, we're going to be all over the place. And it'd be kind of nice to have something to give us a starting point to get us going in the same direction. We all definitely have our own ideas, but they vary. So just trying to find starting points, what we're really looking for is just some fundamentals.
So, Ryan, the only real fundamental too is where I came from before and how, you know, the bonuses were structured there. So I'm not even going to profess that I'm, you know, a whiz at this. And the bonus structure was specifically written from the strategic plan. And then, you know, in that organization for the majority of my tenure towards my last 5 years, I was the operating officer. So my goals were really operational. Do this, do that, complete this, get scores like that, and make this much, and contain costs, and they were really all around those 5 foundations of excellence. I don't have in front of me, and I don't really remember that Bill Charney did give us some kind of guidance or policy. I don't know if that's what you all were looking for, or you wanted something different from him.
Well, if I remember Bill's right, I remember what it looks like, but did it go in a big circle?
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't pointed.
Okay, it wasn't
It
pointed.
was a very good Bill, sit down and write a story. I think that's kind of what turned us off from going with Bill.
So, I don't know if Dave Gilmore is in the room. Is Dave Gilmore there?
I am. You betcha.
So, Dave Gilmore is, and Megan for that matter, are in the throes of, you know, their final year of their master's program. And I know that Dave shares with me a lot of, you know, just great information that they're learning. And I don't know if Dave might want to share some of his insights on bonus structures. As Asante, I know he was on a bonus structure. Again, he wasn't the CEO, but he could definitely share his experience about what it looked like too. David, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You may not be prepared tonight to discuss that, but
No,
otherwise,
I think the best thing to do is I think we have 2 issues here, and I think 3. I think you're proposing to move forward with one tonight, which
Correct.
I think we can make a decision there. But the second one's, we definitely need more, we need more information, because we need a strategic plan done.
Right.
And at that time,
Sure.
I think we would tap you guys for some resources. Carl, you're on that short list of experience, and give us some targets to throw darts at. Yeah. Is that fair, Jenny?
perfect.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
I appointed at Dave, Carolyn, and Carl. So,
Yes, great group of people.
okay. Brian, any thoughts?
You know, I think that my thoughts are the same as they had been. I think, you know, the real hole we've got right now is in strategic planning. And as that firms up and we define what we want to do there, I think it's going to become very clear the criteria that we'd like to, you know, apply to Jenny. So it's just, we haven't got anything to really work with until we get that strategic plan done, or at least the first pass.
My last question, when was this? All right, so it's
This was the last.
Yep. Time frame wise, when this happened,
Oh, July of 2019.
roughly 7 months ago then?
Yes, sir.
And this was enacted in their July payroll?
Beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay. So, you have something?
I was just curious, what did we do in June or July? Did we do something then? we just kicked it down the road.
Kicked it down the road till
Oh.
here. Yeah, we haven't got any.
Okay,
Yeah.
No.
I thought we did it back then.
No.
No. So, I don't, this is my thought process. It's kind of weird to talk about someone who's in front of people, but my thought process is through thick and thin with our current CEO. There's been, when the tide's gone out, she's gone out with it. And when the tides come back in for staff, she stayed where she was. She didn't take the increase with the staff. She didn't take the increase with the staff in July. She didn't, she's never asked for it. And she actually showed tremendous leadership during tough times, not taking things with everyone else. I think, my personal feeling is she's been our captain through all this, and she's weathered our storms. And things have, you know, I'm grateful she's here. So with that being said, I'm in support of your recommendation. I would like to see it retroactive to July.
I agree.
And I feel that that's proportionately fair and
She had not, yeah, like I said, she had not had an increase 2018, so. she's definitely-
Ryan,
yes.
so, I don't know the month. I don't believe it was in July. I believe it was sometime after that. I can't remember if it was retro or not. But you all did increase my base compensation at that time.
That, your contract's in May.
So, yes. And we're in what month? January.
So the number that you showed us, Karen, is that today or is that future? On your post-it note there.
This is today.
So that's 6% or some,
So that
that's
would be,
over the top of what you have for the minimum.
Right.
Miss Carolyn, how hard would it be to pull up?
I haven't, I just got it. That's what I think you're asking for.
Yeah, can I see that? Please?
So this was not a document that came through Human Resources at the time. It was created and not signed by anyone, and it says at the top, effective July 1, 2019, per Board of Directors meeting 6/26/2019. And I was not at that board meeting because I was headed on a vacation, but the increase was
6%.
6%.
That's what I remember.
Okay.
I don't know what we're doing here doing this. This is something.
I wasn't aware, but I had somebody pull the file.
You just did this? Okay.
I mean, it was done back then, but as you can see, there is, the notes here at the top say per board meeting. I'm sorry, let me go back there. Here's the amendment.
I guess that's another question too, are we gonna do merit with employees, or are we gonna do it on contract date? Because that was a question that we had too.
Yeah. So it says at the top, effective July 1, per board of directors meeting 6/26 across the top, but there is no signature on it.
And this one here is,
Oh, okay.
this has a signature
Okay.
right here. So, I guess the second question then, has there been a, I don't know who knows this answer. No, I'm not trying to
No.
fluff anything here, but is it, how it says, since the time when there was a retraction, the most recent retraction in wages for the network, Carolyn, you might have to just try to follow here.
Yeah.
So it was a retraction, then, I don't know if people were brought back to where they were, or where they were plus, so brought back to base,
Mhm.
call it that.
Yeah.
And then they've gone, has there been one bump since then?
Yes.
Okay. So, looking at it from that statistical standpoint, today our CEO would be in line with the retraction. And then, do we come back to base? And then we did 6% in July. Okay. So I guess if you follow the
And that's
math, the
what-
logic there.
Yes, but that's the other question that we had, that Junior, what I was asking before. Are we doing compensation, are we going to do these based on her contract renewal? Are we doing it on an annual basis? I guess I'm unclear on that also.
Well, I think sorry.
Yours is still
I think the contract's a 3-year contract.
It is.
And.
Or we could do it on that date, or we with the whole company that does it.
I agree, but the changes we've made weren't necessarily because of contract terms, it was because of ties in and out
Yeah.
with the network.
Okay.
Correct. So, to backtrack what I said now, with knowing more information, I would just, your proposal of 8%, we did 6, I would go with the 2.
Until when? Until next July? I mean, that's my
Well,
next
it would
question.
be, we would, I don't know how that read,
What
what
is the
she just had there, but it would be,
June again?
no,
July
it would be, so the contract is the wage. And so we would make an amendment to the contract for the wage.
Okay. But it wouldn't be on the contract renewal date per se,
It would-
because we're doing it annually.
Here, let me
So
show
are
you.
you going to do it July 1st like you did this one?
I'll let, if you want me to get this amendment.
The original contract signature.
So, if you read that, scroll down.
Yeah.
Yep. For the contract. Yeah, one more, doesn't touch screen.
Yeah, I know. I can
Per
read
your
this
court
thing.
work plan,
It's annual.
it's an annual review that's supposed to become effective July 1st.
Does the review.
No, that any adjustments to the compensation will become effective July 1st for the proposed 296. Not that you can change that, but that's what it's doing.
So it is July for the rest of the network.
July is after.
This is 2 years.
Pardon?
That's the 2 years.
Well, I was confused here, I thought the next step was to discuss your bonus, I didn't know. I thought this was a separate deal,
No, it's
compensation.
an annual basis.
Set in the same meeting.
Yeah.
Until it's modified, it's not a 1 year.
Receipt.
Well, I think you've done some good work that we can use in the spring.
I guess what's our schedule for doing this? Do we look at the schedule?
It's supposed
Well,
to become effective
April's the work
July.
plan for the compensation committee to gather.
Okay.
And then,
So it was us being behind?
yeah, but
For now, we're-
we did at the June meeting though. conduct with the other staff members that received.
I'm guessing why was it on there?
It's on everyday, but I don't believe you guys are past due at all. I think that she received.
Not on that,
No, we're not past due at all, so that's why I'm wondering why it was on our schedule to
it's
do
the
it now.
bonus.
In April.
Just the bonus. So we're still behind schedule.
Well, we're not, I guess we're behind, but we've also known it needs to be, it's compounding what's to be, which we are getting substantially closer to. Okay. We are going to
Table that.
table this topic. Okay, with that being said, we've gone through first four schedules. Miss Gloria's here tonight. Brian Cullen. I thank all of you guys for sitting through this. And we are going to adjourn public sessions, and we're going to enter executive session. But we will be back if you guys want to stay.